So, dude, I was watching this artifacts video the other day on sidechain compression, which is like taking the volume out of things when other things are happening so you can have like one at the other. And he is doing it in a way I think is kind of inefficient. So I was like, let's just explain how I do the thing. So here I am. So this is what we got. Oh. Now if we just listen to that bass. And you barely hear it, but it actually does get out of the way. That is because, first of all, if you look at the frequencies in the bass, there's no sub in there. So there's already like almost no conflicting elements except for with the snare. So if we listen to that. And then where snare is, let's see, where is the snare? Right there. There you hear duck a little bit. But that is because I multiband sidechain. So without it, with it, there you see that one move down, and you just mute it for like a tiny bit. And how I do this is I have this rack, which I use this multiband compressor on soloing their bands, just to isolate the frequencies. It's not the optimal way, but it's very easy to do. So I'm just lazy. So, and it also doesn't affect it too much. Like it's not too audible, so it's like whatever. If it's always on there, and I'll just compensate for it out of myself, whatever. Doesn't matter too much. But I have, on every track, I have sidechain compressors, which are the Live 8 ones, so I can set the attack to pretty much 0 and not have clicks. So when you hear it, it's almost as if it's not there, even though it's still ducking it. Like extreme amounts, like you can see, like it's infinite to 1, and like the threshold is like all the way down. And this is only mid, so there you can see it's being compressed all the way down, like as far as possible even. You still barely hear it, which is good shit. Now how I trigger this is not by sidechaining to the actual kick or snare that is happening. I am sidechaining to this like tiny bit of noise. Let's listen to it real quick. Like, there you go. Let's solo back to the bass bus. So now, if you can see, I have the kicks right here, like the 808 and kick. And if I want to make this, I just grab a random sample of white noise, and I'll just go like, oh, this is the attack. And for this song, I apparently took a longer one, but in generally, I just look at like where the fast waves are, which that means is like the clicky part of a kick. So the clicky part of the kick is roughly there. So like if I was super precise, I cut right there. But that means it will reduce the volume right here. And then when it ends, there's a release time on the sidechain compressor. And the release time is 17.5 milliseconds. If you look at the bottom right on the left bottom here, if I hold my mouse over it, it says this selection is 20 milliseconds long. So that means that about 70 milliseconds here. It means right this time, roughly, it will basically reduce the reduction down back to 0. So basically this is where it mutes. This is where it comes back in. Because it's 17.5 milliseconds and the release is the same thing. So if you look at this, it's roughly there. So let's take that time selection. Ends there. That means if we look at the bass right here, it will take out of that. But because it's multiband sidechain, I set it up that the highs on the kick will not be taken out that much. And I can adjust it and open up the snare. And on the snare, the highs will still get muted. And on the mid, it will still mute both. And on the sub frequencies, it will only mute on the kick because there's no snare sidechain compressor. So if you look at it right there, you barely even hear it. And it's still sidechaining. It's good shit. Especially if you like, if you come from like a more rock metal background where you don't like to use sidechain, but you still want to have like that impact of like EDM productions, you can do this and in this exact way, and you will not take out too much, because in a lot of EDM productions, when you hear sidechains, especially when a kick hits, you hear that the high frequencies get taken away, and on the snare that the bass will duck for some reason. Like sometimes, depends if it's like sidechain to the drum bus or not, but you'll be able to like hear it, and sometimes it's like a nice effect, but in general, if you like listen to the full mix here, it is not a thing that you will like do there. And the last example where I would use sidechain for like the bass is the percussion, where I do the exact same thing. And there you can hear it. So every kick and snare, everything just gets out of the way. Like the lows and the mids get muted on both kick and snare, because percussion, this frequency is a lot higher if you look. 500 hertz. Like 500 hertz is the crossover frequency. Like every time the snare hits, everything under 500 hertz gets muted. Which for the bass, that's not the sub. This is the lows and the low mids. And that's why you hear it a lot more. But yeah, that's how I do it. And now you would say like, oh, but this is like a hassle to set up. It is not. You can actually just grab all these tracks and have all these buses. Like I use tracks here, but you can just use like groups. Like if you group them up, this is exactly the same as this track. I solo bass bus, but I can just group all these tracks and it'll be no problem. It's just like this way I can have like groups in groups. But if you go into your preferences, you can save a template. Let's see. Save current set as default. So if I go to my default set, attempt a trap, no, don't save it. We'll load up real quick. But you'll be able to see that I've set up these drum, bass, harmonics, and melodic bus and reference track to already have the sidechains routed out and the track in there too. So the only thing I need to do myself is to basically just make a sidechain trigger and put it in where the kick and the snares are, which when you have like your first snare and you already made it, or at least like a placeholder one, you'll be able to like copy paste them together. So you'll just select both of them, paste them wherever you want the snares. Like let's see, you can see like I've kicks, snares, everything's like routed out, and you'll see sends only. And if you look at like the bass bus, and we'll open up the mids, you'll see the sidechain tracks are already selected. That way you don't have to like set up like 6 compressors every time, like 5, 6. Like on the leads, there's a bunch of them. The lows, let's open up. You can see my settings real quick. Boop. But these are just for my preference. I usually change them a lot on like the project, but this is just like my fast sidechain. Don't want to care really. And like half the time I don't even change it, except for like on the chords. But yeah, this is how I do it. Should I leave a template in the description? I'll leave my template. Like I'll leave this project in the description so you can download it and look at it, like how I route stuff and how I do sidechain. And I hope you have a nice day. And like, comment, and subscribe, and kill me. And I'll see you guys later.